The purpose for today's webinar is to provide an overview of our Local Energy Access Program, or LEAP as it's known in short. So today I just wanted to talk about the 5 different phases of the project, a little bit about the timelines and the deliverables that are coming out of it. Also an introduction to our project team and advisors. 2 of them will be presenting on the call today. And the others are listening in for the most part. There may be 1 or 2 that are unable to attend, in which case I'll read their bios myself. You will have seen in an email accompanying this meeting invite bios for the entire team that you can look at your leisure, as well as I did send out a few-page document that provides the overview on the phases, the timelines, the deliverables, as well as kind of an executive summary of the entire project. So I won't spend a lot of time going through that, knowing that you guys have those documents, but I wanted to provide just a high level of the work that we've been doing so far, and a little walkthrough of the approach that we're doing, and Michel and Maryam are going to help with that latter part. So the Local Energy Access Program is a multi-city, multi-sector initiative. We're leading the CUSP network, and it's through funding from FCM's Transition 2050 program. Overall, we're looking to achieve deep energy and emissions reductions, as well as reduce energy poverty through more equitable clean energy program design. And in order to do that, we need to be more intentional around how we're designing equity into those programs and the way that we're doing our engagement. So I won't read the entire slide here, but this is CUSP's theory of change. Basically, through this project, we're hoping to help shift the practice of how we've been designing our first generation programs in the past, which those ones primarily targeted early adopters and saw uptake from higher income households, not surprisingly. And so those programs weren't initially designed for widespread uptake. The idea was that we would help move the market along, and as the market matured, the cost for these project technologies would come down, be more accessible to the majority of households. What we know with our second generation programs is that we need to plan and resource these programs for much broader adoption, and so they need to be designed to address the barriers that many households have in gaining access to these technologies. And so the way we're going to do that is through this theory of change here, and we're looking to change the way that we collect and analyze data. So that's the part that Michel will be primarily talking about today. And then we're also looking to engage with different folks in our community and do more collaborative engagement and co-design for those clean energy programs. So there's 5 phases to this project. Sorry, the font or the resolution is not very good here. And we've changed up the timing just a little bit, but in a sense, we're kind of working up until our annual meeting in June on the first 2 phases, which is the readiness and the design phases. So we're going to be talking a lot around the design today. The design component is primarily around the development of an equity and energy poverty baseline mapping tool, which I won't go into right now because that's what Michel's going to be talking about, as well as doing some technology modeling for different clean energy technologies, which is what Duncan, the team from C2MP, will be focused on. The readiness stage is a lot around getting you guys ready, so having these early webinar conversations, as well as we're starting to form up some of the training that will be provided throughout this project, primarily from the Tamarack Learning Institute and Liz Weaver. The construct and resource phases is where we get into working with CADMIS, and that's around operationalizing the guidebook. I should remind you guys that the guidebook is on our website, on CUSP's website, and that's the Equity and Energy Transformation Guidebook for Local Governments and Partners that was developed as one of our core projects for 2018. That was led by CADMIS Group, who we've continued to work with on this project, as well as 7 other US cities. And in Canada, Toronto and myself, the city of Toronto, primarily Rayanne and Linda and Mark, worked on that project and the development of that guidebook, which we're really proud of. But it's a big guidebook, around 70 pages, and so the main thrust for this project here was to help operationalize that guidebook and recognize that that guidebook has a sort of a at the very beginning of the guidebook, some suggestions around how to make sure that you're ready to embark on designing more equitable clean energy programs. And so we're really trying to address that readiness component through this project, and that is around acquiring different data and analyzing that data, and then helping to provide some training and support and some tools to do more collaborative community engagement with your most underserved communities to design those projects to be targeted at them. So this is a list of the different deliverables. This was included in our proposal documents, and it was just to show that we're really trying to make an effort through this project, even though it is the CUSP project, and we do have 6 core cities on this project. And a reminder that those core cities are Saskatoon, Winnipeg, and Halifax, primarily chosen because they have smaller sustainability departments and perhaps require a little bit additional support, but also because they have some of the highest rates of energy poverty across Canada in those provinces. And then we've also invited Ottawa, Surrey, and Toronto to round out that team, those 3 cities having already initiated some work in an energy equity space. So these are the kind of 7 major project deliverables, and you can see across how they benefit or who they benefit. And a big goal of this project is to memorialize as much of this project as possible in tools and templates and worksheet materials, as well as webinar series, so that it can be used by others throughout our USDN network, as well as the FCM network. So there's the guidebook that is already in existence and some supplemental resources there that CADMIS produced, which are some case studies primarily. And then the work that we're going to be talking about today is the energy poverty indicators and mapping tools. Mapping tool and the different products that will be able to be produced out of that. The technology modeling and scoring is something that we'll be working on with CADMIS, and we're just scoping out that work right now with Duncan and team. That one will be specifically targeted at the 6 cities, helping them to develop that modeling to see which technologies will be most suitable or most impactful for their communities at large, but also particularly for their underserved communities that have been identified. The methodology and model will be completely open, and so it will be available to others, and we'll look at how to help the other 16 cities in CUSP use that methodology and model, but we're also going to be making sure that it's available to anybody else who wants to apply a similar, use those tools similarly. I should say that the indicator and mapping tool that's being produced by Michel and his team isn't just going to populate a mapping tool for our 16 cities with the 25 plus social indicators and energy poverty calculations that we're making. It's actually going to be available across Canada, and Michel will be talking about that. So USDN cities in the US will not be able to benefit from that tool, but it will be applicable and available to all cities across Canada, which I think is a really nice bonus from this project. Obviously, the outcomes from this project are that the 6 cities in particular will be developing clean energy, at least one clean energy program, and hopefully able to prototype and demonstrate that project or that program during the 2-year timeframe of this project. And all of those materials that go into the development of that program, the 6 cities have agreed will be fully shared, and that goes down to even their engagement materials and communications plans, etc. And finally, we're going to be providing some one-on-one coaching to the teams, and that will be primarily targeted again at these 6 cities, although we'll be doing a lot of web series and trainings that will be available to everybody and will be recorded like this one. And all of our coaches have also agreed to provide at an hourly rate, a very reasonable hourly rate, additional coaching. So if any of our other cities beyond the 6 core cities want to follow along with this project, we can do that with a small additional budget for that coaching. And then we've got our 2 annual meetings. So we'll have the first one in June 2019, and then the next one approximately at the same time in 2020, where all of our CUSP city will come together, and the core focus, or at least one of the core focuses of that annual meeting, will be the progress of this project. And we'll try to, just like the one this June, we'll try to use the time that we have everybody together for the most valuable learning opportunities. So this is our project team in short. The baseline equity mapping tool being made by Michel Frojmovic and Michael Dieter. I'm not sure if I said your last name right, Michael. I think they're both on the call today, and there's others from the Community Data Program team at the Canadian Council on Social Development. Duncan Cavins, who you did hear introduce himself on the line from C2MP, who will be doing our technology modeling. Julie, Curdy, Catherine, and Farah were all involved in the original project to develop the guidebook. And so they'll be helping, the three of them will be helping us operationalize that guidebook. And finally, as I mentioned, the collaborative engagement and collective impact training and other training in asset-based community development. We're still finalizing the scoping of what those web series will look like. Will come from Liz Weaver at Tamarack and her team. So there's at least going to be 6 to 8 20 to 30 minute web series that will be recorded on collective impact, and then our full day workshop in June with your community foundations. I was going to provide longer bios of our team members, but I feel like because I sent those out, I won't do that right now. Duncan, you're on the line. Do you have anything you want to add about the work that you're going to be doing?
Not at this point. I can add some a little later as we go through the presentations. I don't know. Is there any specific thing?
No, I just thought because you're on the line, if you wanted to add anything else, if I'd missed anything.
No, I'm good. Okay. It sounds good.
Great. So I'll just keep us moving along then. We also have project advisors, and the main role there is to provide us with some strategic guidance and some vision. This is fairly new to me, and as I was developing the project proposal, I leaned on these folks to help me with the development of the proposal, making sure that it was going to not miss anything, but mostly as this was, a fairly new field for me to really weigh into. So from that and from the work of developing our guidebook, we met some of these folks. So Abhilash Kantamnini was one of the advisors on the guidebook's development, and he's a PhD grad student at the University of Guelph. He's just flying back from India, his sister's wedding right now, so he's not on the phone today. Maryam, who is just finished her, or I guess last summer, had her PhD defense on energy poverty specifically. I'll read a little bio about her before she starts talking. And then Sean Loney, let me give you a quick one on Sean. For those of you who are not on the phone, Lindsay would be very familiar with Sean because he's based in Manitoba, but Sean has co-founded and mentored 11 different social enterprises, and he was previously the Director of Energy Policy for the Government of Manitoba. Abhilash, I'll just read quickly, or he's otherwise known as Abby as well. Besides being a PhD candidate at the University of Guelph, a lot of his research has lied in the intersection of energy transitions, local energy planning, and energy equity. He's also on the board of a couple of different Renewable Energy Alliance groups delivering energy efficiency and renewable energy programs to rural communities and low-income communities. He also happens to have a master's in physics and computer science, as well as a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. Maryam similarly is an interdisciplinary researcher as well. And I'll talk about her in one second. Erin Fitzgerald is our most recent addition to our advisory committee. And Erin, are you on the phone? Okay, Erin was going to join, but she's just joined the Ministry of Energy and Mines here in British Columbia as their latest policy analyst, focused on their work with Indigenous communities and remote communities. And I had the pleasure or privilege of witnessing her defend her master's from UVic just right before Christmas. And her master's is in political ecology at the School of Environmental Studies under the supervision of Kara Shaw and Judith Sayers, for any of you from BC who are familiar with those two powerhouses. So her work is, her research is primarily around First Nations involvement in BC's renewable energy and the energy justice issues for Indigenous people related to renewables and independent power production. So we have a great team of advisors. I'm really excited, and so far the work that they've been doing with us and the guidance they've been providing to myself and Michelle in particular over the last month in the development of our baseline energy mapping tool has been amazing. Maryam and Abhilash have been asked, they're kind of wearing two hats. So not only are they advisors, they're also contractors to this project, and I'm trying to seek out some additional funding so that we can bring them on for even for even more support and coaching of our teams.